Hiya guys, back to our YouTube channel. Thanks for your great support. Nyinyi ni watu wa nguvu zaidi. Please guys, don't try to swipe up this video. Niliwaambia guys, Raila Odinga alikuwa amebeba watu wengi, ama alikuwa amesupport, ama alikuwa amewapatia watu wengi support pale ODM party. Na nikawaambia guys, kuna kikosi cha wana ODM kubwa sana ambayo ilikuwa inaning'inia kwa Raila Odinga, alikuwa amewabeba. Na William Ruto alikuwa anajua kitu kaa hiyo. Na once Raila Odinga ashaenda, William Ruto ameamua to start kicking them out one by one. Na ndio maana guys, ile wakati wa burial ceremony ya Raila Amolo Odinga upande wa Bondo, John Mbadi alikosea pakubwa. And William Ruto hakujua kwamba William Ruto is trying to follow up something. William Ruto alikuwa anajaribu kufuatilia ni nani huyu ambaye alikuwa anasapotiwa na Raila Odinga. Without Raila Amolo Odinga support, hawezi fika anywhere. Ni nani huyu? William Ruto akakuja kurealize hiyo wakati wa burial ceremony. That's why unaona William Ruto amekimbia, anataka kureshuffle his cabinet secretaries. Unajua kimkick out direct itaonyesha kwamba Raila Odinga ameaga dunia, so majamaa wameanza kutolewa. No, William Ruto wants to reshuffle. John Mbadi anaenda kwa kicked out. Unaona watu from that docket anaenda kwa kicked out. Alikuwa amepewa docket because William Ruto alikuwa amerespect Raila Amolo Odinga. Juu Raila Odinga kama angeweza kujoin Gen Zs na kuleta maandamano kubwa Kenya, believe me, William Ruto angeenda nyumbani. William Ruto angekimbia kuresign, ama Raila Odinga angeandaa impeachment motion pamoja na Rigathi Gachagua na kupeleka huyu jamaa nyumbani. So ilikuwa tu lazima William Ruto akubalie story ya Raila Odinga kwamba eka huyu hapa, eka huyu hapa, eka huyu hapa. Thanks for your great support. Nyinyi ni watu wa nguvu zaidi. You see guys, kuna ile blanda John Mbadi alimake. Kuna ile blanda kubwa sana John Mbadi alimake. Kwanza kabla ya Raila Odinga's burial day, kabla ya Raila Amolo Odinga kuaga dunia, John Mbadi alikuwa amejigamba sana kwamba yeye ni first person Luo man to be the Minister of Finance. Unajua hiyo docket, by the way, hiyo place ni place nyingine kubwa sana. Unaweza fanya mambo mengi sana. Na kwa ile region ama constituency yako ama ile county yako, mnaweza fanya kitu ya maana sana. And that's why John Mbadi alikuwa anajigamba. And after that, moments Raila Odinga alikuwa anazikwa, burial day, John Mbadi aliachilia speech ambayo William Ruto alikuwa ameketi akifuatilia. Hii ndio speech yenyewe.
The reason why I've decided to be strong is that I'm aware that if I went ahead of Raila, he would be strong for me. And therefore I've decided to be strong for Raila Amolo Odinga today. But it was not an easy day. Let me say the following. Many of us here know Raila as Baba. Many know him as Jacom. Many know him as Agwambu. We know him as Tinga. We remember him as Nyundo. He is Okegonea. He can be everything. He sounds very big. But we must remember, for some of us, that Raila started small. Raila worked hard. Raila remained resilient. Raila remained patient to reach where he is. I remember in 1992, 33 years ago, when I was a student at the University of Nairobi, Raila was running for Langata parliamentary seat. He could come to my room, Block J, room 19. Later, Block B, in Malindi, Block B, room number 2, planning on how to win Langata. That time, the politics of Nairobi was volatile and violent. There was Jeshi la Mzee,
So
led by
ikawa ni
Fredo
kama
Mlugumo.
kumbe ni Raila Odinga alikuwa anapeana ujamaa backup. Kama Raila Odinga angekuwa pale, even John Mbadi angekuwa maybe member of parliament, angekuwa maybe kwa government. Unaona guys? So ni Raila Odinga ndo alikuwa anafanya nini? Ana make sure ana push huyu jamaa kutumia ODM party. Na ni wengi tu wako pale ndani kama kina Gladys Wanga. Na ndio maana unaona ODM party imeposti kwamba wanaenda kuwa na mkutano next week. Is either on Monday ama Thursday. Na hiyo mkutano guys, wanaenda kuketi chini kufuatilia hizi rumors. Is it true William Ruto wants to reshuffle his cabinet secretaries? Na unajua na reshuffle kwa sababu gani? Hiyo ndo kisa na maana ya hiyo mkutano ya ODM party to have a meeting. So William Ruto wants to reshuffle it. Na ndo maana Otiendo Molo amebakia na msimamo moja. Na unajua kubakia na msimamo moja inamaanisha bado wanataka support ya Wakenya. You see now, ukweli ODM party kisha declare kwamba they support President William Ruto 2027. I'm sure watu wanaenda kuacha ODM party. Believe me or not. Na hiyo ndio kitu hawa majamaa wanataka kufanya nini? Kumake sure wanakuwa keen nayo. Sio mchezo kina Gladys Wanga wanafanya hii. Unajua kwanza Gladys Wanga akizungumza anaongea tu kiyeye mwenyewe. Leo nimeona foto nyingine hapo yeye na Governor Kahiga, watu wengi wameanza kusema kwamba hii ni game tu, watu wanajaribu kutucheza. It's like ni William Ruto anajaribu kucheza chini ya maji, pushing Governor Kahiga aongee ushiti kama hiyo ili wa drag Rigathi Gachagua into troubles. Unaona, unajua sasa kama Rigathi Gachagua atakuwa profiled hivyo kwamba ni governor ametuma Governor Kahiga, then Kenyans wanaenda kuondokea Rigathi Gachagua. Hiyo ndio game plans ya President William Ruto and Gladys Wanga. Unaona watu wangu. Na nikaona Otiendo Molo amebaki na ile msimamo plus na Edwin Sifuna. Wanaongea kitu kimoja ambayo pia Raila Odinga alikuwa anakiongea. But I'm sure like video na nasema thanks for your great support. Nyinyi ni watu wa nguvu zaidi. Sikiza mambo.
For now, as the National Executive Committee, we met on the day that Raila'S remains were being brought, and we unanimously endorsed his brother, Senator Dr. Oburu Oginga, as the acting party leader. In terms of anyone wanting to know, that should be sufficient for now. He is the acting party leader, and the organs of the party will meet later and make a decision for confirmation or otherwise. That therefore should be sufficient for now. But you know, the problem with people, it's at two levels. It's the question of who will lead the party.
Yes.
That has already been answered because Dr. Buru is the acting party leader. But then there, as a community, there are also those who are asking who will lead the community.
Oh, who will replace Raila Odinga?
Who will replace Raila Odinga? You know, these things, for party leadership, you can meet, you can elect, and it is resolved. For a question like who will lead the community, that is not an elective position. That is not a thing that you can declare that I am now the leader of the community. Those are things that emerge with time. Raila was never elected to lead the Luo. He emerged to lead the Luo. And he started, even when Jaramogi was still alive, he had already started rising. So in terms of who will lead the Luo, we will leave that to time. And we are not in a hurry because that's not an elective seat. We will see how that plays. It might well be, and we hope not. You know, the Luo are a very interesting people. Historically, do you know most kingdoms were established by the Luos, including the kingdoms in Uganda, including the Baganda kingdom, the Banyoro kingdom, most of those kingdoms. And what they would do is they would come, establish a kingdom, install a king, and then rebel against that king and move on. and leave the king and the family, to become part, of the tribe, where they had installed them. So that is what happened, and until they got to Kenya and established the Wanga Kingdom. And then moved on from the Wanga Kingdom. I see
you laughed at that, but okay.
So the Luos are not an easy people. They are not a people you can impose yourself that I'm now your leader. They are people who can choose to accept you or otherwise, and that we will leave to time.
Okay, I have to ask you a question about what the president said.
Yeah.
And he was clear that we are not going to allow anything to break this apart. In your assessment, was he referring to the broad-based government, or was he referring to the ODM party? Because speaker after speaker after speaker, speculation after speculation was that the ODM party must remain. Whether we're talking about Waziri Joho, Opiyo Wandayi, John Mbadi, James Orengo, Osotsi, everybody, Gladys Wanga herself as the chair of the party, everybody came out. Millie Odhiambo came and said the same thing. You did yourself, that the party must remain intact in order for whatever to happen. The president also seemingly said the same thing. But what we don't know is whether he was referring to ODM as the party, which would give rise to maybe he could be a candidate for ODM, or whether he was referring to the broad-based government. What's the case here?
In my understanding, the president could only have been referring to the broad-based government, because there is no way President William Ruto, who's the leader of UDA, can then speak for ODM, which is, for all intents and purposes, a party in competition with UDA. It is my understanding, and that is why all were united in strengthening the party. Whether we decide to support William Ruto in 2027 by not having a candidate, whether we decide to have a candidate to run against William Ruto, whether we decide to if you want, accept William Ruto as a candidate in our party, the first thing that must be done is that ODM must be strong as a party and not be swallowed by UDA or any other party. And that is not to deny support to the broad-based government. We are in the broad-based government because the government is UDA, but we as ODM have come and lended support to UDA by donating our experts. If we were to be weakened to the point that we do not have a strong voice, then we would not have a party. And certainly, the president cannot, for now, cannot be the spokesperson for ODM. In fact, for ODM to be useful even to the president or UDA, ODM itself must be strong independently as a party. Then my understanding is that when it comes to 2027, if President Ruto still desires the support of ODM, then we must enter a structured negotiation again. We must be very clear that if we are to support UDA, what are the gains? What are the bargaining points? And we cannot do that if we are strong, if we are not strong. We cannot do that if we allow ourselves to be swallowed into UDA for now. And that is why, irrespective of what anyone says, we must remain strong and independent as a party first. Then we can have a strong bargaining and negotiation position. Otherwise, we would have been swallowed into UDA and there would be no interest in negotiating anything with ODM. And that is why my understanding is that the president could only be talking about the broad-based. The president, what the president needs to do is to maintain non-interference with the ODM as a party. That is what would be helpful.
I mean, let's look at the broad-based 10-point agenda. And the reason why I'm talking about the 10-point agenda is at the time when it was formed, one of the key agendas that was there was to deal with police brutality, and that comes to an end. And at the time when those were the irreducible minimum, you see a year later, and there was the killing again of Kenyans in the country. And one would say that we did not hear the voice of ODM as had been before. But let's extrapolate that even further to when Raila Odinga was being taken to Kasarani, and we saw Kenyans who were killed in the presence of a man who fought for these rights, a man who, through the broad-based government, has said no to police brutality. But up to this point, you look at the legacy that was Raila Odinga, and his party, ODM, has not spoken about the killings that happened on the very day. Begs the question, why then is ODM in a union that whose leadership is going against the very agenda that they agreed to deal with in the first place?
First of all, I think a number of people have called out that issue. You remember even at the funeral, Dr. Akinyuenwa spoke to it. And certainly, police brutality is of serious concern, which is why it was in the framework agreement, and it is a work in progress. And I must say that while I think that the police have shown greater restraint than was the case. You remember, like when we were doing the demos and all, the brutality was at another level. In later times, even with the demos that I now saw, the police have generally shown more restraint. Not that police brutality is gone, it is still there. But I think the fact of having put it in the agenda, required, and with the change of leadership at the IG level and at various other levels below, I think the police have shown a little more restraint. I will tell you, for example, that on the day Raila was brought, and we had all calculated that it would be brought to Parliament, and there was a way that, it had been agreed. And we had all thought that having called Kenyans not to go to the airport, but instead to come to Parliament, Kenyans would come to Parliament and line up and wait. But Kenyans are Kenyans, and when they're mourning their greatest hero, it's a different matter. They broke all cordons at the airport, and they came even up to the airside. Now, the police showed restraint at the airport because they could have tried to use force to prevent them from coming. But I think, acutely aware of the situation, they decided that they would rather allow the breach of air protocols, and by the way, of course, we raised some things there, than use force. Then when it came now to Kasarani, first Parliament. I left the airport and dashed to Parliament because I had still hoped that we would manage. While in Parliament, as we were having a brief meeting with the committee, because I was representing I was actually calling the committee, then we realized that the crowd that was waiting had actually already breached, and they were in the process of breaching the walls of Parliament. Some were on top of the gate. And when I went, I realized that there were hundreds of thousands of people outside of Parliament, and they were threatening, to come into Parliament. Well, even up to that point, the police at least restrained themselves. You could see they had just pulled back. It took me, and I think Babu Wino, we had to jump into that crowd, just to try and talk to them and tell them that what they are doing, if they breach Parliament, they will actually not just be betraying, they will be giving the police a reason to stop people from viewing. So we jump right into them and talk to them, and since many of them, they were all Baba's followers, but a majority of them were Luo, obviously. So we were even talking to them in Luo and persuading them and all. Let's just say we managed to stop them from breaching Parliament. Okay? And so as they were coming, in communication, once it was decided that the body goes to Kasarani, because when we were telling them, now we are going to view in Kasarani, they were telling us, no, you people, you must have hidden Baba's remains somewhere. He's not going to Kasarani. So we made sure that the group that was moving toward Kasarani moved slowly enough around Parliament so that they could see. And that's when a majority of them joined the convoy as it was going to Kasarani. Now, and in Kasarani, I think there was a mistake collectively as organizers, because You know, the state had taken over. All this was being organized by the state, essentially the military. But I think the military are not a very communicative unit.
Nope.
So there was no one in Kasarani to keep talking to people to tell them what was happening. And what was happening, one, is Raila'S body had to be moved to Kasarani, but the viewing could not start immediately because they had to do the embalming, having been transported.
Yes.
Now, in that time, Raila is not at the airport. He's not in Kasarani, and there's a lull. So people are thinking they were duped, and no one is talking to them. You see? So that lull and that delay, I think, was the problem. And it was the problem enough that caused the attack. Now, at that point, I think it's understandable that the police may have used force to restrain forceful. But I think they should, at the very most, have used rubber bullets. Not live bullets, because it is clear from the autopsy report that all who died out of bullet wounds.
Yes.
You know, and I thought that rubber bullets would restrain enough without having to kill anyone, and therefore I personally call out the police for that. I think that was totally wrong. We should not have lost lives for people mourning Raila Amolo Odinga. Yes.
Okay. So even as, I mean, obviously that should not have happened. It's been called out on very many occasions since then by a number of people. And just looking at then what happens thereafter, and looking at a legacy that was left by Raila Odinga, it's not something that can be forgotten. And I've been talking about this for the last couple of days, that my mind goes to the video of the young lady during the protests in 2024. And she said, Agwambo, leave it to us. You have done this for the longest time. You have taught us. Now let us go and do this. So that spirit is very much alive now. This is somebody who is educated. She's thinking. She's clear on what she is seeking for the country for tomorrow, coming from what Raila Odinga has said. So she knows the agenda for the people. Now, I want to go to some of the people who are surrounding Raila, who, from what we hear, might be scared, honestly scared, because they may not come back to government. That people voted them in because Raila said so. Is that fear genuine?
Well, it might or it might not. And from where I sit, I think there's a there's a sense in which there's been an exaggeration in terms of who Raila made to be elected or otherwise.
Okay.
I can tell you that, for example, these last elections in 2022, in all the elective positions, from governor to senator, member of parliament, and at least up to member of parliament, what at the instructions of Raila, the party did surveys, very quiet surveys, not by one company, but by two and three companies, three separate companies. And the surveys would be like in Rarieda, where I represent.
Yes.
Who are the candidates? What are their popularity rates? For the whole country. Where you hear that there are people who got direct tickets, it's because those ratings by three different companies brought results showing that the popularity rate, yes, is above 70%. In those instances, Raila instructed it would be a waste of money to conduct party primaries, because party primaries are quite expensive. Those who don't know might think that those who got direct tickets, it was because Raila had their hand. No. Raila is a very practical man, was a very practical man. He would only give you the direct ticket once he was sure that you'd win. There are instances, and some people blame Raila. For example, in game, my friend, the late Jacoyo Midiwo, did not get the ticket. Why? Because of this same assessment, despite the fact that he was Raila's cousin and a very close confidant. Twice. So Raila would practically follow the scientific, ratings. Where the rating was low, then the party primaries would be conducted. In other words, it is my understanding that those who are rated highly would still be rated highly even if Raila Amolo Odinga is not there, because I believe we would still use the same processes. Okay? But it is also true that there are people who depended on Raila to be sustained, or even for politics, especially not so much in terms of ratings, but in terms of agenda. Okay? But you know what? Elections should be about serving the people. If the people you serve determine that you have done your bit or failed to do your bit and need to elect somebody else, there should not be any problem.
Okay.
Because that is the nature of elections. And so I think that we're in a situation, just like we are facing the by-elections that are coming now, we're in a situation where